I just mean I can't see anyone's mouths. So
Welcome, everyone. I'm Tara, and I'm going to give people a minute to come in, so we'll just hang out for a minute. What we're doing today is we're going to have lots of guests from the community to come in, and we're going to show you how to do the brain story, to write your own brain story, and to kind of map out your sensory profile. And we've had some tech issues, so sorry we're a few minutes late getting started. And this wasn't the way we thought we would screen share, but it's what we can do right now. So hopefully we'll blow this up when it's time to get there. But welcome, everyone. I'm really excited about this. Okay, so the brain story. What is this? This is a tool that we believe everyone would benefit from using, whether you are autistic or ADHD or otherwise neurodivergent or just totally neurotypical. This can be really helpful for you. But especially if you are a teacher or a parent, or a service provider trying to better understand children or adults in your life who have different sensory profiles than the world is suited to accommodate. So, yeah, anyway, Kate and I developed this tool, and these are Kate's illustrations. And we did this because it's expensive and difficult to get a sensory profile, and most people just don't have access to doing that. Insurance doesn't usually cover something like this, and so this is something that you can do yourself. And it is scientifically based, but this is also your own, this is a way for you to communicate to yourself and to others how your brain experiences the sensory. So yeah, anyway, I would like to introduce you to some really cool people, and we will have multiple people coming through, and we'll also give you the option to jump into the stream with us at some point later today in this. No, nobody is frozen. They just don't have their cameras on currently. But yeah, we will have several guests today, and we'll be interacting with them and working on their sensory profile and mapping it as examples to show you how to do your own. And let me stick a link in the chat if you want to print. It was on the Facebook post, but there in the chat is a link that should show up on YouTube and Facebook. If you want to print this or just have your own, personal copy, you are allowed to print this or do a digital version or use it in whatever way you want, wherever you want. Just always credit Neuroclastic, of course, and preferably send people to our website to read the full article, which I will also link. But first, I'll introduce you to Emmanuel. Hey, Emmanuel.
Hi, Tara. How are you? It's nice to meet everybody.
Emmanuel has been the voice behind the articles, who has been recording and making so many of our articles on our website more accessible. So now, if you go to lots of the bigger articles that got a lot of traffic and some that didn't on Neuroclastic, that is the voice of Emmanuel, who's been recording those. So thank you so much for doing that.
It was an honor to do it, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to do it, and I hope it helps a lot of people. I see that it helps a lot of people.
So you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Emmanuel?
Yes, sure. Let's see. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Um, I currently work as an individual self advocate, slash voiceover artist slash writer slash speaker. Um, I was diagnosed as autistic at the age of 27, and I started my advocacy work about 5 years ago. And I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy to provide any perspective or any help that I can to the community at large.
Thank you so much for joining us. And now I would like to have Sasha introduce herself. Oh gosh, is that the right pronoun? She, her,
She, her is fine. They is preferred.
they. Oh, so sorry about that.
No,
So we met in a really hilarious way. Would you like to tell that story and also introduce yourself and talk about your page and what you do?
okay. I am Sasha. My Facebook page online presence is I too am a test kitchen, I too TK. And essentially I am talking about my own uh, journey with nutrition. I have multiple sclerosis. And because I don't particularly care for all of the multiple sclerosis treatments, I am basically doing diet and exercise. That's my life right now. And also because medical care in the U.S. is just a complete poop show, and I'd rather have my health in my own hands. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And somehow through the algorithm, Tara found me, and we were talking about apocalypse foods, things that you could eat in the end of the world. And we are buzzard burger buddies now. That's who we are.
Yes, it was the poor man's pork, maybe, and foods that people can eat during the apocalypse. And I am from the poorest region in the United States, in the backwoods of West Virginia, and we have been in the apocalypse for decades, and so we already have a lot of apocalyptic dietary norms. And so, yeah, buzzards. I had to talk about buzzard burgers. I don't recommend them. And I have not tried a buzzard burger, but I have seen other people do that. So just, yeah. Anyway, that's how we met. Okay, so let's just jump into the brain story now and talk about what this is. So these are your sensory systems. You want to blow it up, Kate, so that we're looking at maybe the top half. That's a lot better. Okay, so as you can see, you've got, and this is not perfect, but we did the best that we could, and you can improvise when you draw yours. We had to do that some. But these are some of your primary sensory systems and your sensory experiences. And what we're going to do is connect your brain to each sensory system based on your experience with that one. And so we will start with a manual and time perception. And we've been talking about that on the page. Time agnosia is when you do not have a very good sense of the passage of time. And so you can't, if you can't tell how long things take, you're probably always late. This is super common for autistic people and ADHDers. And you probably, if you do not have good time perception, you probably stress a lot about everything all the time because you let people down on accident all the time and you're trying so hard to keep up. But how long does something take? 5 minutes, 5 hours? You don't know. You don't really have a good way of estimating that because you just don't sense time. A lot of neurodivergent people are the exact opposite, and they have a very strong dominant sense of time, and they are very schedule oriented, and they might find being late very disrespectful. They always know what time it is. If you don't, you might not even know what season it is. I have to think several times a day, what season is this? Because I just have no sense of it. So, Emmanuel, tell us about your time perception. Your mic's muted.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say time perception is mine gets particularly worse under stress. I'm late. I'm late for I'm late often. I usually have to set alarms at like maybe 5 to 30 minute anywhere between 5 to 30 minute intervals to go off to make sure I get where I need to go, or even an alarm that goes off it, or even an alarm or a timer that goes off at a specific time that says, okay, you need to go here, because sometimes I'll get distracted by something and that's my ADHD kicking in. I'll get distracted and then all of a sudden, huge gaps of time pass. So it varies on a number of circumstances, stress level, whether I took my meds, time of day. I mean, it's a variety of factors, but primarily I have a weak perception of time.
And I can guess, let us know in the audience if that sounds very relatable to you. Now, when a system is variable like that, it is because when you are well regulated and you don't have what we call a traffic jam in your brain from sensory overwhelm from one of your weaker systems being overtaxed or multiple weaker systems being overtaxed, then when you are well regulated, those weaker systems can function a lot better. But they're kind of the first ones to go once you start getting overstimulated and overwhelmed. And so it sounds like your time perception is a pretty weak system, and so Kate drew a very thin line for that one.
Yep, that was it.
You can draw anything around it that feels important to remember or to notice about it. So you could draw like medication. I don't know what medication you take, or like little tablets, or you could draw like food around it to remind you that it's a system that needs regulating. When I drew mine, I drew like clouds around it because it felt like so nebulous.
The clock is actually pretty good because I use an app called I think it's called Get On. Get On It, and it goes up, and I can set it for like a specific amount of. I'm on it, and I can set it for like a specific amount of time, and then it can go off. Like I think the last setting I had it on was like every 30 seconds within like a specific time period.
Yeah.
So
you can draw. Yeah, you could even draw like little alarm bells or something if you know that you need to set alarms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alarms, timers, all my friends.
Yeah. So for me, my line was so tiny and so faint because I practically have no time perception. And a lot of people out there are probably angry at me because I've missed things. And I also have some memory issues. And so I don't even know what I've missed sometimes. Or I'll plan for weeks to do something that's super important, and then I'll just happen to notice the clock and I've missed it or it's almost over. And that happens a lot. So my time perception line was probably dotted and super thin. All right, Sasha, let's talk about smell. As a
Oh,
parent of everyone's favorite baby, and that is something that if you follow I too am a test kitchen, it is hilarious and you will love it. It's a really fun community page. But yeah, as a parent, you have to deal with a lot of smells.
that is very true. And smell, even before my kids, was always something that was very important for me. Um, Icky smells are very icky, and I would prefer not to deal with them. But really good smells, I cannot get enough of them. I love like having different types of perfumes or um, room fresheners. I used to work at a the low income tax place, Vita, and we would have all manner of people come in, and they would have varying scents. So to keep myself grounded, I would have my own perfume that I would keep on my wrist, and whenever I was talking to someone, I would sniff my wrists, to keep myself from to make myself experience the smell that I wanted to smell. So I really smell is very important for me.
Okay, so when a smell can be extremely dysregulating or also extremely comforting and regulating, this is a super dominant sense for you. It's a dominant system. So this gets a really thick line. Would you say out of your senses this might be one of your strongest, one of your most
Um,
dominant senses?
it is one of my most dominant senses. Yeah.
Okay, so we might even do that line thicker, Kate. Because if you're wearing something to use on your wrist all the time to like counterbalance environmental smells, then that means that that's a pretty big deal to you. So we've got a thick line here, and as you do this, this is yours. You can rework this a million times, print as many as you want, or if you're digitally doing it, erase and start over. And so
Can't draw
this is a more dominant sense. And with your dominant senses, these are often your biggest strength and your biggest weakness at the same time, or your biggest regulator and your biggest deregulator. So,
Oh
and we
yeah. So I
talk,
guess it's very is because I even cook by smell. Like, oh, this doesn't smell like it has enough onions in it. This doesn't have enough of whatever herb in it by smell, and that's why I have problems putting up recipes. I don't know everything.
is there anybody out there whose sense of smell is so strong that, like, you stay far away from people because you're afraid of smelling their breath, even regardless if it's good or bad, just because you know that smelling someone's bad breath will like ruin your day and you won't be able to focus, because that would mean that this is a really dominant system and you give yourself a thick line on that one. And also for guests who are jumping in, feel free to jump in anytime. You have the link, and we will put the link in chat for our audience to jump in as well shortly after we get some of our scheduled guests through. Okay, let's move to Emmanuel again and do one more for you.
Okay.
How about balance? Let's talk about balance for you. Do you have, do you do a lot of things all the time? And this is your vestibular system, that inner ear system. And a lot of autistic and otherwise neurodivergent people are dizzy all the time. if you are, and there's no problem with your inner ear, that is a sensory issue with your vestibular system. And you might get dizzy anytime any of your senses are overwhelmed, because that's a weak system. And like I said, when you're well regulated, there things are okay. But then as soon as you start getting overstimulated, your weaker systems are the first ones to go. And so if you're a vestibular seeker, then you probably love to hang upside down and spin, and you're always leaning back in your chair. You might be super physically active. You might like to, lie down on your bed with your head upside down. My child does that all the time. She's always in what looks like a yoga pose just because she's always vestibular seeking. So how about you, Emmanuel?
Well, I would say it depends on like if I'm moving, like if I'm specifically moving, like sometimes in a car, my balance gets very messed up. But like if I'm on a train, I don't really experience it all. And I'm also like, I need to move, or like if I'm sitting in like a 4-legged chair, I need to balance on like two. I need to balance on like 2 legs, or I can lean on 1 foot, or when I'm laying down, I need to lean on like 1 arm. So I think my balance gets worse, if I'm tired or hungry. But for the most part, my balance
Pretty
is okay.
pretty average, you would say, and that's the thing. A lot of our systems are going to just be pretty similar to the way that would be considered neurotypical.
Yeah.
And so we'll keep that a standard size line.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to Sasha. Do you see any of these that you want to talk about, or you want us to just pick one?
Dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice. Okay, let's do love of words. Because after following your page, I feel like this might be a strong one for you.
It is. I would say it is strong, but not terrible. For me personally, using words is very important. But with like for other people communicating, I value communication over the words. So like even with grammar type stuff, I don't care. If I can understand what you're saying, then I understand what you're saying, and that's the point. But for me, like choosing the right words and finding the right words is probably why I prefer writing over talking a lot. Because with writing, I have time to choose what I want to say and find the word that best conveys whatever it is I want to communicate. So yeah, I would say maybe like a third of the thickness of the smell one.
Is that about right? Let's say
Uh,
no, Jerry.
no. I just want to. Kate doesn't actually have to draw it, but under love of words, I actually know the like specific term behind that. I think it's the logophile. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, logophile.
logophile.
Yeah. Today I was talking to Sasha, and they said verboten instead of, another word like forbidden or excluded. And I was like, this is amazing. I am a writer too, and I feel attraction to people, not a romantic attraction, but just I really like the way people use language, and that is not that doesn't have to be like them being scholarly or having big words, but just interesting, the way that their brain processes language. And if it's similar to me and I like the way they put things together, it shows me a lot about how they think and what their personality is like. And I feel very drawn to other autistic and neurodivergent people because I feel like I can see patterns in the way they put meaning together through words, written or spoken, but especially written. And so I became a literature major. I was a science major, but after I started getting into literature in undergrad, I became a lit major because that was a very strong one for me. I'm not good at much of anything else. I'm really not great at communicating, but I still love words a lot. So two totally different things with your attraction to and draw to words being and language being different from the way your communication reads to other people. So this is just you personally and not how others take you. So yeah.
Now, see, I love words, but for years I always thought I was a really bad writer until I met Tara. So it's interesting. Like if I'm overstimulated or overwhelmed by my environment, crosswords, word searches, anagrams, cryptograms, those all help calm me down. And for years, I never thought any of that. I always thought, everybody loved words like I did. So I didn't actually think that was like a special, I didn't actually think that was like a special, unique thing that people had, or being like a good communicator. I didn't know that was actually a thing and you could get work for that. So, and I also love seeing subtitles too.
Oh yeah, I love subtitles. And we have Ben Bro. Welcome, Ben. We love Ben so much. Ben is non-speaking and an activist who works in lots of different ways. And if he gets up and walks away, that's because he has motor disinhibition and his body does things that he does not always consent to his body doing, and he'll be back in a minute. So we'll just wait for him to come back when he's ready.
Tara, this is Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Hi, I'm going to go get Ben, but is there a chat feature?
Yes, the chat feature on the side. Do you see private chat? On the far right.
I see exit full screen, private chat. I see present.
That should be the bottom. Do you have like a bar at the right that has comments?
No, I can show you. I'm looking at something that says Love of Words logo file, and then there's like all these open things on a computer screen.
Oh yeah, that is just the screen. You should. Is that all you have? Exit
all I
full
have.
screen.
Okay, exit full screen. Okay. Oh, there you go. Hello. All right, I'm gonna go get Ben.
Okay. Do you see private chat on the side?
Private chat. Yes, private chat.
There you go. That will
Okay.
only be only Kate and the other people in this stream currently will be able to see it. And we also have Sid from A Link to the Spoons. Hey, Sid.
Hi there. How are you?
Hi, Sid.
Hi.
So, Sid, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your page, and then we'll go to you and explore one of your sensory systems. And Emmanuel and Sasha, thank you so much. You are very welcome to stay on with us, but no pressure if you need to go. And yeah, Sid.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm Sid. I am the page owner of A Link to the Spoons. I kind of run it with my partner. He's ADHD autistic. I'm multiply neurodivergent, ADHD autistic, anxiety, OCD, etc. So lots of fun neurodivergent things going on. My page talks about neurodivergence, disability, life as a disabled person, a lot of intersectional topics as well. So that's kind of me and my page.
And so happy to have you.
Thank you.
We recently met over some
Sweetie.
really difficult community dynamics, and sometimes going through hard things together is just a fast way to become really special and important too. At least you have a big place in my heart right now.
Oh, thank you so much. You as well. You're absolutely right. A lot of things like that definitely do have a tendency to bring the community closer together, and even just individual people. So yeah, even though it was not the most like fun, exciting experience, I'm really glad that I was able to connect with so many wonderful people like yourself throughout that.
And just as the briefest context, we're talking about anti-native racism that we kind of experienced in disability spaces. So anyway, let's talk about, do you see any of these sensory systems you would like for us to focus on? Or do you want us to pick one for you?
Let's do like I think maybe like fine motor skills is a really good one for me, actually.
Okay, so tell us about your relationship with your own fine motor skills.
So I'm an artist and a graphic designer, so I use my hands a lot. And even though I do art a lot, my hands definitely do not like to work with me very frequently. I actually have a lot of really difficult like dexterity issues, so fine motor skills like picking things up. The other night I was actually making pizza and I took it out of the microwave and my hands just decided to flop it upside down onto the counter. So my fine motor skills not always the greatest, especially when it comes to like writing and things like that as well. I really have to focus on how letters are formed and how well my handwriting looks. I get a lot of compliments on my handwriting, but that's only due to years dedicated to writing slowly and well so that it's clear.
And that is going to be something that we are going to creatively portray on this, because it is not really simple as doing a thicker or thinner line. Because you have motor disinhibition, you often do some fine motor things like, randomly flipping something over that you didn't want to flip over. And so that's a disruption, but it also is a strong system. So you have good fine motor ability, but you also are dealing with, and that's a strong system that your brain wants to focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something else that kind of plays into that too, like my brother was diagnosed probably around like 7 years old with dysgraphia, and I didn't receive any autistic ADHD diagnoses until a couple of years ago, and I'm not 30 yet. So it's interesting to see how, even though we had very similar fine motor skill struggles and other like similarities in that particular realm, my brother received a diagnosis at a very young age. So that, I think a lot of that, those specific traits really worth paying attention to.
And so, Kate, you put some, was that lightning bolts?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking of, like, I have pretty good fine motor, but sometimes I sometimes I throw some stuff, and it always feels a little bit like an electricity surge. But I don't know what it's like for you. That might not feel like it does justice for you.
An
I think that
electricity surge is
represents well.
good for me too.
That's what I would have worked with. That's
Okay.
a good definition.
So, do you feel like that line is thick enough to represent your fine motor?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since it is like a 50-50 where, like you said, I have the ability to have those fine motor skills and apply them, but not consistently and not when I want to. And it definitely hinders my ability to do graphic design or cook things for myself or sign forms, especially from at the doctor's office. So, and even to go hand in hand with that, the co-occurring conditions with autism, such as like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, fibromyalgia, things like that. I also deal with those along with peripheral neuropathy. So there's also these other elements that tie into the fine motor skill portion. So I think that works fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about hypermobility in your fingers, because I'm really hypermobile in my fingers, so I can do things quite neatly for a little while, but I have to take breaks because things that I am capable of doing, I'm not doing for long periods.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and sometimes when we're in video, you'll see Kate randomly throw a thing, and that is just Kate and motor disinhibition. So now we have Ben, and if you'll zoom back out, Ben, is there a sensory system on here that you would like to first address? To kind of explore what your relationship with that sensory system is. And Sarah, you have the mic muted. No, I unmuted you. I had you muted. So now you're unmuted.
Can you repeat what you just said? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're okay. Is there a sensory system that you would like to first address that you have about your relationship with that sensory system on this brain story here?
Okay, I'll go over that with Ben. Thank you.
Sure.
I think what's interesting is like the relationship, just while they're doing that, is the relationship between the senses. So like which ones you lean into. My memory is awful, but when I link it to rhythm, it becomes stronger. So on my brain story, I linked rhythm and memory.
And also, thank you for audience members who are helping to answer questions from other audience members and put links. Here is the link to I Too Am a Test Kitchen page.
You have the best community.
We really do. And while we're waiting for Ben, Kate, you said rhythm helps, and that was I know if you look at my sensory profile is on the article where we discuss this. That is a huge one for me. My brain puts everything to a rhythm, and if it's like white noise or something, it will drive me I can't focus on anything else because my brain will not stop trying to find a rhythm in something that it does not have a steady rhythm.
Does that mean listening to music while you do something means that you can only listen to music you know? Because if you were listening to unfamiliar music, you'd be too busy concentrating on the rhythm and predicting what would happen next.
Yes, if I am listening to new stuff, my brain cannot do anything else but listen and process. And that is both the rhythm thing and my auditory processing issues at the same time. But
and maybe also the love of words, because you're tuning into the words, trying to tune into the words too.
Yeah, and I can't understand them unless I read them. And so usually, and so there's all of that. But my rhythm line was not even a line. It was just like a big wave
Mhm.
connected to the brain. And
Tara, do you find that finding the pattern in the rhythm can be distracting as well, or no?
oh, absolutely. And that's what I was talking about. Maybe it is a pattern seeking thing, but with rhythm, it's like the one that I just can't let go of. And every single thing that I do gets set to a beat. If I'm stirring food, uh, or like just banging my spoon on the side of a kettle to shake off the sauce, it's got to be to a rhythm, and I'll get one stuck in my head, and everything I do will be in that loop to that same exact rhythm for days. And when people disrupt that rhythm, it starts stressing me out, and I've never found a way to get around that. Anybody else out there the same or in the audience?
I have a white noise machine issue. I realize that the white noise machine usually runs on like a loop, and if I can realize what the loop, I can realize where the loop is happening, it completely overwhelms the relaxation that the white noise is supposed to actually stop, and
I
it
remember
becomes the one thing I focus on.
when we spoke to the guy who was the scientist at Brain FM. Tara, do you remember that?
Yes, Kevin was his name. I know, that's all I remember.
He was talking about how they design music to aid concentration, but they have to be really careful not to introduce any kind of predictable pattern into it, because the moment that a pattern-seeking brain finds one, it'll work to concentrate on that, and it won't help you concentrating on the thing that you're listening to music to concentrate on.
Okay, we have typed message from Ben. Ben is a speller and was pointing to letterboard, and his communication partner has typed in the chat what Ben had to say. I mostly have issues with purposeful movements. I have such an issue with doing movements that are instructed as opposed to if self-initiated. I find relief and de-stressing in music and in interacting positively with other people. Oh, that's interesting. So let's look at movement first. Ben, you move a lot, but also it's purposeful movement. And curious, when you say you have an issue with doing movements that are instructed as opposed to self-initiated, is it easier to do them when they're instructed or when they're self-initiated? And then we'll give Ben time to answer that.
I'll draw that a little bit.
I feel like I'm that person who would like to move all the time, but my vestibular is so bad that I'm moving while sitting because I get dizzy so easily. And so my hands and feet constantly move, but my head has to be very still or I start getting dizzy quickly.
I need something in my hands, like grip trainers are my friend. So I get that.
That is probably going to be your push-pull too.
I honestly believe that. Yeah, that fits for me too.
So I'm trying to get the difference here between a prompt from an external prompt or an internal one.
Oh, yeah.
Because we could have, if it's an external prompt helps, we could have like, that's good, whereas that's less likely to work, or we could switch them around.
Okay, we got a response from Ben. It's my apraxia. So much easier if self-initiated rather than instructed. Total case of body and brain disconnect. Okay, so
that's this way around, right?
yes, that was a good way to draw that. And so maybe a thin or no line whatsoever with the instructed movements versus the self-initiated.
So Ben could have two lines, so like a thicker one up to here. Maybe, and that might be too thick, I don't know, but then a thin one to here.
Yeah, does that...
Ben, you can correct me. I'm just freestyling.
Kate, this is the coolest.
I agree with Ben. This is pretty cool that everybody's got like their specific color in mind.
It was supposed to, it wasn't, the sharing of this has gone wrong. You've got my entire computer screen, and I'm really sorry for that because we had other plans, but they didn't work. So
I'm surprised that Heidi, who you all know as the author of Your Child Is Not Broken, has not started trying to sabotage you by sending you crazy things that are...
well, she absolutely would, but we were just teaching before this, and she's probably gone off to have dinner or get a break, so I get a free ride.
Heidi likes to do that to Kate. Maybe I do too.
I was going to say that's the thing you have in common.
All right, so let's move one more to Sid, and then we'll come back to Ben. But first, let's ask Ben about one of the other systems to give him time to respond.
Should we just zoom out?
Let's talk about touch.
So we're going to ask Ben about touch?
Yes. Ben, what is your relationship like with touch? That would be like things touching you, and also your need to touch other things and feel textures. And that would be like your clothing, but also what you do with your hands to experience the sensory of touch. And so while Ben is answering that one, Sid, you have a choice, or do you want us to pick one for you?
I have one in mind. Short-term memory, because that one's my favorite.
All right, let's talk about your short-term memory.
Yay! Yeah, short-term memory. There's this thing where I'm pretty sure doors are evil because as soon as I walk into a room, I have no idea why I walked into the room, but as soon as I walk back into the room I came from, I remember exactly what I needed. This happens with literally everything. I cannot tell you what I was doing 5 minutes ago, but I can tell you what I was doing 2 years ago on a Tuesday afternoon. No idea why. And it seems to be that with short-term memory for me, if there is like a pattern, say like numbers or colors or textures or something like that associated with like the thing that I'm trying to remember, I have a much easier time remembering it. But without those like almost markers or key like kind of like keywords almost, I like can't remember the thing. So I have lists for everything from grocery shopping to what I need to do every day so that I know what I've done. Especially things like taking medications, I have to have an organizer because I'm the type of person that will miss doses or double dose myself because I can't remember an hour ago if I took it or not. So that is definitely my short-term memory.
Okay, so what you have actually described here when you say unless you remember it associated with some kind of pattern or something, you lose it. So you have actually done what we call calling in backup. Where you take a weak system and you compensate for that system with a strong one. And this is how we teach parents and teachers and therapists to support the people that they work with or their children. So when you have a sensory system that is non-dominant or that is disruptive and inconsistent, then you call in backup. And so if you have vision issues that prevent you from being able to follow text when you're reading, we say call in another more dominant sensory system like audiobooks or like text narration software. And so then your eyes are still following the text. You're getting the rhythm of that to help practice your vision and your motor tracking, because that's also a motor thing. But you're calling in the backup of a more dominant system. Eventually, hopefully, you will develop some more of that skill, but sometimes you never do, and you have to use the accommodation forever. And either way is totally fine and valid. And so your short-term memory is a very, very weak system for you. So that will be a super thin line. But what if you were doing your own, what you might do is like draw in some way a line to a different system that you're calling in backup.
You, I mean, I wondered if rhythm might be it, or like some visuals, so your eyes, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I have a really photographic memory. Like it's kind of frustrating too, because when you watch shows like The Good Doctor and they have autistic characters portrayed in a way that they can see pictures and they can dissect what they're looking at inside of their brain, I like almost do have the ability to do that, but it's only because of that that I'm able to like remember certain things. It's like I really lean into that one element in order to compensate for my lacking in other systems.
I like that term, by the way, calling backup. I like that. That's a good term.
So
And what you've actually done is not, you have not actually improved your short-term memory. You have committed it to long-term.
Pretty much, yeah.
And so that's why a lot of neurodivergent people remember something exactly or remember nothing at all. And that's because if you remember it exactly, you know, basically eidetic or photographic memory almost, or very accurate memory, then you have put it in your long-term memory, and that can be really overwhelming and enorming. I don't even, that's called aphasia. I have that. My brain often pulls the wrong word, and I get worried that I'll do that during live stream, and it will be a very unfortunate word choice, but enorming is not that bad. I don't know what I was trying to say because it left my short-term memory already.
I catch your drift.
See, I'm always envious personally of anyone who like has like any kind of photographic or eidetic memory. I'm one of those people that'll remember something incredibly obscure from like years ago, and then later if somebody asks me a question about it, I know the answer to it, but I just don't know how I came up with it, even though I don't remember how that actually happened. I've never been able to legitimately understand it, and it happens with words. It happens with clips from movies and television shows. I never get like a whole picture. I only seem to get like little scraps and bits of things that just seem to come up like later, like at the most inopportune moments, or like the most.
Real quick, before something bad happens, sorry to interrupt, but I put the link to join this live stream, which means you will come up on this show with us. If you are in the audience and would like to join, please remember that this is recorded, and so the stream will be available indefinitely. And please don't use swear words because people will like to show this in various environments, and it will also get us downgraded in the algorithm. So keep it, family friendly. Okay.
Also, so just to go back to what you said about the door, it's called the doorway effect, and it's really common when brains get overloaded. I experience it not so much going into a room, but when I open a new window on my computer, and I'm like, great, why am I here?
Also another new term I didn't know.
Yeah, I have like probably over 200 tabs open on Google because that is my short-term memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we have an answer from Ben.
Okay. Ben's saying touch is right here.
Yes, touch. I constantly need to have interaction with tactile environment around me. And touch is tactile, by the way. I tend to also not really know or be aware of my own hand and or body strength.
So that's proprioception, right?
Yes, that's two different systems and can unintentionally hurt people when I'm really just trying to connect. And so that's two different systems. That's the touch and it's proprioception, but we have called it push-pull on this because we try to make it accessible for people who are just looking at this. Yeah, down there. And so for Ben, that push-pull would maybe be a dotted line because...
Tara, I have a question.
Sure.
So proprioception means knowing where you are in space, right? Like the space around you?
No.
No? What is a proprioception? That's what they taught us way back when Ben was getting OT. What is it? What is the correct?
That is your...
Pulse?
Yeah, your need for pressure on your joints. And so I think you might be thinking of interoception.
Okay.
No, they do talk about proprioception being where you are in space and time, but I think it's how you know. Like sometimes seeking input tells you where you are.
Yes, that's what I mean, Kate. Like like the stamping of the feet that Ben and a lot of the peers will do. They're trying to find their space by interacting with the environment around them, not just touching, but purposely interacting with the environment, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and so for Ben, we drew a dotted line because Ben cannot always tell how much or how little pressure he is applying, and I am the same way with this. I need a lot of force, so much that I can't really tell how much is too much because I don't register it until it's a ton. I like to lie down on my stomach all the time with my head up in the air because that gives me the most pressure with the weight of my body against something flat because I need, that's a vestibular and a proprioception. I like to wear compression garments all the time and like thick fabrics, nothing thin. I can't stand anything touching my clothes. I mean my bare skin because I need that deep pressure everywhere all the time, and I'm clenching my jaws all the time because I need that joint pressure, and I push on my hands, and I also injure myself, and I sit in ways that hyperextend my ankles and feet because and I sit usually on top of both legs because I'm just trying to get as much of that feedback as possible. Sorry, I'm getting a scam call. Okay, so for touch, this is a strong system for Ben, so I would do a thick line. He says, it's important to note, though, that I detest weighted and compression garments, hate tags, and have to have them all cut out. Yeah, I think that's a really... How many other autistic people really hate the shirt and or any in any way neurodivergent really hate the tags on your shirt?
I loved it when they removed the tags officially and there were no more tags. I thought that was the best innovation.
I
Print
only
tags
buy
are like the best thing. Yes.
Yes.
Best innovation they've done in a long while.
Yes. Lots of people very sensitive to textures, and Ben does not like compression garments, and so there is an example of like a really complicated relationship with motor and that push-pull, that proprioception. Okay, we have, is it Lysander? Did I pronounce that correctly? Has joined the stream. Your mic is muted if you.
Oh,
There you
yeah.
go.
So tags, they make me itch. It's not really a sensory issue. I haven't really thought about it that much though. Although I hate jeans. I hate clothing that's like really, I don't know, coarse or whatever, or just clothing that feels off. I don't know how to explain it, but it just has to feel off to me.
Right, so you have a strong relationship with texture, even if maybe it's hard to define which textures specifically. So for you, that would probably be a thicker line. Let's, is there Lysander? Did I pronounce that properly?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's talk about, do you see any that we haven't covered yet that you would like to talk about?
I'm more here to listen.
Okay, that's good then. Let's go back to Sasha. You've been quiet. Let's talk about your relationship with temperature.
Oh, that's a good one. So, like I said, I have MS, and so we have temperature issues. Like I'm at risk of heat stroke and different things like that. And also, my extremities get really cold very quickly. Um, and so I have not found the perfect temperature range for me. I'm very sensitive to temperature, but I don't know where the Goldilocks zone is for me. I have not found that yet. I'm sitting here right now, like rubbing my hands because my hands are cold because we have a draft from our front door that whips into my room and it's like directly on my hands. And I want to put on gloves.
So this, like, the thermoregulation is tough.
It is. It
How would
is.
you
Listen,
how would you represent that, Sasha? Would you
um, maybe
does it feel like a dotted line? Or does it
I
feel
I would say kind of maybe a suspension bridge ish because I need a lot of different things to get me to a temperature nirvana. I don't know.
So that's a
Okay.
dominant system, even though it is a finicky system, and a lot of autistic people have chronic health issues that cause them to have. And this is not whether you're hot or cold. This is how much temperature matters to your sensory regulation. So if you are a person who doesn't really care or even notice temperature, and you can be wearing shorts and sandals in the coldest part of winter and a short sleeve shirt and not care or notice, then you would have a very thin line. But if you are super sensitive to temperature and you are always aware of it and needing to manage it, then that's a more dominant system and you would have a thick line. And so that would be a thick line for you.
Props on drawing the bridge, by the way.
I know that's dope. And there are I guess there are some instances where I can ignore temperature. Like if I'm outside gardening, if I'm moving and doing something and I have like a mission, I don't care if I'm hot.
So your kind of calling in backup would be to your movement sense?
Maybe, yeah. If I've got something that I'm really focusing on, and I guess especially something that I'm really focusing on using my body,
Okay.
So
and I don't care.
let me look in the chat here and see if Ben has said anything. Ben says, also, I wear headphones all the time unless sleeping. This is not only for muting sounds a bit, but I must have the pressure on my head and ears. I think that is, yes, that is. So I feel like that's a dominant system for Ben. So maybe that dotted line.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Can it be dominant dotted? Maybe like this.
Sure can. It can be whatever you want because these are your sensory stories. And so however you do them, that best represents. So we are at an hour at this point. So let's kind of go quickly through some of these that we haven't talked about. Kate, you can use mine for rhythm and just do a really dominant one because we've already talked about that in depth. And you can do a really dominant line on long-term memory because that's kind of what Sid said. Sid, is your pronoun she, they?
They, them.
They, them. So they said they have a really dominant sensory system.
Which sense?
I mean, long-term memory. See, there goes my aphasia again.
Sid, Sid, you were yelling, right?
Let's talk about neuroception because a lot of people are not aware of what this is, but a lot of you probably have a really intense relationship with your neuroception. That is your sense of or awareness of threat. And regardless of if this is something innate that you were born with, or if it is caused by a history of trauma, it is still a part of your sensory profile, whether it's acquired or inborn. And so if you are constantly scanning your environment, if a small difference feels like a huge potential threat for anything, not just like danger, but like of things messing up and going wrong, of being embarrassed, of being rejected, if you just have a constant like high awareness of threat, then that's your neuroception. And definitely trauma will make this a much more dominant sensory system than maybe it was, naturally going to be as you developed. In my household, mine will be a very, very thick line, but my husband's will be the thinnest, almost not there. And so everything feels like a huge deal to me, and he does not notice. He has almost no awareness of smell, so everything smells so overwhelming to me, and he doesn't notice. He's a lot less stressed than I am because his sensory profile is, he has a lot less dominant, overwhelming sensory systems. Is a lot more balanced, and so we're both autistic, but the stressful things he has largely, and he doesn't have the trauma history that I have, so his life is very different from mine, and he does not see or understand all the ways that I'm always stressed out because I have this intense neuroception. How about you all? Ben said, "I'm so glad I did this. Love how we are such complex and amazing humans."
I agree. I know trauma can mess with neuroception quite a bunch. And I know I had that problem for a little while, especially when I went through autistic burnout. So it definitely was highly very
dominant.
Yeah, it was very dominant, going through like an incredibly stressful or tiring situation.
And just asking the audience too, is that, had you heard of neuroception, and now that you have, is that something that you really struggle with, having very dominant awareness of potential threat. And it doesn't have to be actual threat, it's more like scanning the environment for threat. I'm just nervous about things like my auditory, and we can go to hearing. My auditory is so extreme. It is a very dominant system, but a very disordered system. And I'm not saying that my neurotype is disordered, but my hearing is definitely disordered. I am not hard of hearing. I have hyperacusis, meaning I hear everything, but I can't process it. My left and right brain do not work well together. And so understanding the things that I hear is very hard. And because I'm a slow auditory processor, sounds that I'm not expecting startle me, because it's like they're so loud and so intense. And so, Kate, how do you think we could draw for hearing for me, where I have hyperacusis? I hear everything, but I can't understand it, and
like really loud nonsense.
Yeah. Loud sound soup. That's another reason that I like to listen to the same few songs. Like, there's one song, we had someone in the audience talk about, as we're posting these things about different types of agnosia, about how they have a playlist with just one song and they'll listen to it for weeks at a time. That's me, but even more than weeks, and it can literally be years, and it might be more than one song, but it's usually the same artist and just a couple songs, like maybe 3 or 4 or 5.
I respect the playlist. I just put it on repeat.
Yeah, and I will listen to that in my dreams. If I start having a bad dream, it's so become a coping mechanism for me to tolerate my sensory environment. And I have my headphones on, and I have, the big, bulky, cut out the rest of the world, only live inside my headphones. That, to tolerate the outside world enough, I have to put those headphones on and give my brain a break by listening to something I have so memorized that I don't have to process it at all. My brain just knows it, and that way I can reset my sensory system by listening to that one song. And now when I start having stress in a dream, I put my headphones on in the dream. It has become that automatic, and start listening to that song in my dream, and I start getting, calmed down. And so I haven't had as many night terrors and nightmares because of that.
When I start to get overwhelmed at an auditory level, I start stimming more. I've just stimmed the end off my pencil. It's on the floor somewhere. So we're out.
Does it not work anymore? Because we can just not draw.
I'm like, I could find it.
I think people get the point at this. Can you zoom out and let me see if there's anything that people need us to at least explain on this?
Well, I can call in the backup of my foreseeing this kind of problem and put a new one on.
Well, there you go. Calling in backup. So taste is, everyone understands what taste is, and we can just kind of skip that. If you are constantly seeking taste and you love to eat, and that is just a really powerful sensory sensation for you that you think about a lot, and whether you love it or hate it, if it's a dominant system, and the more delicate that sensory system is, it's probably more dominant, because you can't handle
the heat.
Well, yeah, the heat. That goes with the pain, though.
Do you want me to draw anything to that? I've called in backup. We're good.
Just do your own taste one there. And while I talk about interoception, interoception is your internal sense of being able to understand what's going on in your body right now. So whether you are hungry or thirsty, if you don't notice or think about it until it hits a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10, then you are going to have a very weak sense of interoception. If you start getting hangry and you cannot focus, or if you have a headache or something is different in your body and you are definitely, or on your skin, and you are definitely going to notice it, that's a very dominant system for you. So you would have a very thick line. But if you don't notice things in your body at all, and some people might say, well, some things I notice a lot, like I notice my hunger, but I never notice if I'm like bleeding profusely and I have a severe injury and I'm walking on broken bones. So that would be two totally, you might have to come up with a creative way to draw that one.
I'm the person that went to A&E with dislocated, broken and finger and 2 broken ligaments and giggled. So
for me, I've gone to work in sepsis and multiple organ failure twice. 2 totally different years for different things, but I just don't notice. I don't know if I'm sick or hungry until I'm literally at starvation point. I can have 3rd-degree burns and I feel just general anxiety, but I can't tell you if it's good or bad. I don't know if that bad feeling that I'm having is that I'm experiencing an emotion. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, dehydrated. I don't know. It takes me so long to process. It's like too late by that point. And I go to a doctor and they push on things and say, is that tender? I'm like, you'd have to nail a railroad spike into me before I would even notice. I don't know how that's not going to help you, but they never listen to me because my interoception, I'm dead inside. So my line will be very faint on that. It has to be like gunshot wound level before I can register it. Yeah. Okay. Pain.
I guess I answered the pain question, right?
Right. I was going to say they kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
Yeah, this is not how much chronic pain you have or how much you experience pain, but how dominant it is as a sensory thing. So do you have a very high pain tolerance and don't notice or register it? Or is it very low and you are super sensitive to... My child, like I worry about her. She can't pull her teeth, her baby teeth, because she just cannot with pain. So hers will be a very thick line because if something is painful to her, it consumes all of her focus and nothing else can register for her. But I'm the total opposite. So,
quick question. If you were to have like 2 things, like for me, for pain, like I feel like a lot of pain just doesn't register for me, period. Like it just doesn't. And then there are some pains, like for example, because I have fibromyalgia, there are some pains that even just clothing brushing against me feels like a wildfire against my skin. So I guess how would we like draw that from like the brain? Like what kind of line would we use for something like that?
You might do 2 different lines. For that one to show that you have 2 totally different, there are some kinds of pain that are extreme to you and they register and they take over your sensory awareness, but then other kinds, and I think that might be for people with chronic pain issues.
Might it depend on other sensory systems and how well they're regulated? So for example, if I'm overwhelmed visually or auditory, like in my auditory system, I can't cope. My capacity for perceiving pain or coping with it is really reduced.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether that makes any difference to you, or whether like pain in my head is really bad. I can't tolerate a lot of pain in my head, but I can tolerate it on my limbs.
Mm-hmm.
I like the 2 lines describing it.
Okay, do we have any questions from our panelists who are currently in the stream and or from anybody in the audience right now who are with us about, your own sensory profile or
I have a
Anything
question.
sensory?
I do
Sure.
too. After
Wait, let's get Sasha and then Emmanuel.
Should I stop sharing my screen now?
No need to. Or yes, either way. It doesn't matter.
So when you were talking about taste, I was thinking about also, I guess texture, and I guess it is texture. Because sometimes I don't crave a taste, I crave like crunch or a certain feel. And the taste isn't, I mean, the taste is important, but it's not the thing that I really care about. So which one of those is that on this
I think
map?
I would indicate if I think I would indicate that with the touch more because that's a tactile thing.
Hmm.
If it's the sensation of the touch and the texture, then that will be more of a tactile thing than a taste.
Hmm.
But when you're telling your own sensory story, your own brain story, these are not standardized because humans cannot be standardized, and so you could do whatever you want with your own sensory profile to help you map yourself and to help other people understand. And you might just write some things down on there with words if you can't really convey things with your thickness or thinness of your lines. Okay, Emmanuel.
yes, I wanted to know who came up with like the graphic that we used to explain it. Was that all you, Tara?
And Kate, yes, we came up with
Okay,
that
Tara and Kate.
together.
It's very nice. I
Thank you
just
so
wanted.
much. And Kate drew it because
But I can't draw it unless someone tells me what to draw because I
Yeah, it's very nice.
have this fantasia. So. Yeah.
Okay, we have a question. The need to chew anything from food to remotes to clothing when focusing. Okay, so this is not a taste thing. This is your push-pull, your proprioception. So on that sensory profile, that's a push-pull thing. And a lot of times we chew because it is socially unacceptable in a lot of contexts to do the things we need to do to keep that proprioceptive system engaged as much as we need. So if you need to have a lot of pressure on your joints and you can't jump or lean your chair back in school and get some movement, you can't do push-ups or lift a weight or pull on something really stretchy, you can't do that in most settings because it's socially unacceptable. And so you can't climb a rope ladder in the middle of class or at your job. And so we start putting pressure on the joints in our jaw and around where a jaw meets our skull. And if you push on your head, your forehead or the top of your head, or you pull your hair as a sensory regulation thing, or if you chew or grind your teeth, those are all your proprioception, that push-pull sensory system. And if you're doing things like chewing all the time, that's maybe a sign that you are not meeting your sensory need with the rest of your body because it's just not been allowed for you to meet that need. In a classroom, especially as children, that need gets punished a lot for people who are push-pull seekers. And so that is why a lot of us end up with broken teeth when we're older, because we've chewed, and TMJ and jaw issues because we've done that. I do that to an extreme. And I've lost some teeth, and my dentist in the molars in the back, and my dentist won't even replace them because he said I will just break those too. I chew through any mouth guard that I've ever gotten after a few hours. Yeah. Any other questions before we sign off? Yeah, we have another person who lost so many molars too. Okay, well, we will end the broadcast. Thank you so much to everybody who was on our panel today for being a part of this. Make sure you follow a link to the spoons and Ben B. Words from a non-speaking autistic, I think is what his page is called, but I will put the link in the chat. And a link to the spoons. Manuel doesn't have a Facebook page.
You can just they can reach me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter under the Blue Maverick.
Okay, let me type that in the chat.
Also, thank you so much for having me here, and thank you to the other panelists as well.
Yes, thank you. That was a really good experience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you both, everybody, for coming. That was fun, and hopefully that tool can be of use to you. I will put the chat, there we go. It's time for me to stop talking. It's just going to get worse. I'm going to put the link to the full article that has the printables in it and some explanation of how to use this. Like I said, use it with your clients, use it with your students. Go through one sensory system per day until you get everyone's mapped out, and use it for yourself. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks.